Hey, welcome to the 448th episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patron Bo Barrett. You can check out his work at bobarrett.com. That's 2 R's, 2 T's. I'm Matt Enlow.
And I'm Oren Kaplan, and today we have Tyrrell and Meryl on the podcast. Tyrrell Shaffner and Meryl McTiernan have made a movie about Katie's mom. And Katie is livid.
Oh, I thought you were going to say she's got it going on.
Oh, she does have it going on. It's a May-December movie about a young man and an older woman having an affair. Check out the trailer, Katie's mom. Just type it into YouTube, Katie's mom trailer.
Importantly, the young man is
fun.
Dating the daughter of
the mom.
Katie's. Of the mom. Yeah, exactly.
He's dating Katie, and then he hooks up with her mom. And there's a lot of SCX scenes. So many that the MPAA forced them to cut a bunch of them.
And we dig in on all sorts of stuff with this one. A little bit of all the facets of indie filmmaking and how you get a film made. Especially like a fun, flirty, sexy rom-com. Not a rom-com, but like a fun, sexy comedy.
They call it a sex comedy.
A sex comedy. But what's unique about this film in particular is that I have an especially long history with it. I've known the filmmakers since a workshop back in 2017. And so the rare thing when they reached out to us, I was like, oh, there's not going to be another film that I know as well as this one outside of my own.
Yeah. It's a really fun conversation. They're really cool. We also unintentionally talk a lot about the value of living in LA. It just is a good reminder that the networking part of this works really well when it's in person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would even dare say it wasn't about networking. Like, to me, the story is about community, right? Like ways in which filmmakers can support each other.
But every filmmaking workshop is about going to be with other filmmakers.
I equate a workshop more to education. And like, certainly there are people who you can meet.
It's different than taking a master class online, right?
Certainly. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it sounds like very uncharacteristic of you. You're kind of attributing some sort of negative quality to the word networking.
I don't have any problem with the word networking, but I think that oftentimes networking, implies an exchange of some sort, right? Like that you're networking with other people to like help them and let them help you. The transaction is similar.
I count going to buy a coffee at Starbucks as networking. Well, on that note, let's talk about another way we can network remotely with each other, which is on our Patreon, patreon.com/justshootitpod. Wait, now I'm worried I started the Patreon talk and people are hitting that fast forward 30 seconds button, but don't hit it because we have more important things to say, especially about this live show. It's November 10th. I mean, what's it going to be, like 3 days after this episode comes out, right?
Yeah.
November 10th. How do people, Matt, do you know how people can even find this event?
If you go to leestrasbergfilmfestival.com, you can get free tickets there. Oren, myself, and our dear friend Jordan Brady are hosting a live panel Sunday, November 10th at 6 p.m. We are talking about how you turn your passion into profit, a filmmaker's guide to commercial work.
Yeah, I think we're both three filmmakers that come from a narrative background that still very much enjoy narrative filmmaking, but also are trying to support families in Los Angeles.
That's right.
We'll talk about how filmmaking is something that we can do for a living.
This will be at the Lee Strasberg Film Festival, so there'll be a good number of actors there as well. If you're curious about casting your next project, and you can maybe rub elbows with the next James Dean or Marilyn Monroe, both Strasberg students. leestrasbergfilmfestival.com.
We're doing this. I'm trying to do everything way out of order so that we can break these fast forward 30-second buttons, even though we're just as guilty as everyone else for using them. But the other thing I do want to say that we haven't mentioned yet is that you can watch Katie's Mom right now. It's available right now on Amazon Prime, on Fandango's streaming site. It's really funny and sexy. Why not support some independent filmmakers?
Ooh la la.
Anyhow.
Well, without further delay, let's talk to Tyrrell and Meryl.
Somewhere I saw that this is based on a true story. Is this
loosely,
one of your moms?
Yeah, of course. No, it wasn't one of her moms, but my ex-boyfriend actually did have an affair with his girlfriend's mother before we met.
Gotcha.
So his previous girlfriend, before you dated him,
Yep.
He dated her mom.
Wait, Meryl, you're saying you're like, hey, I'm going to date this guy who I know had an affair
Yeah, let's.
His ex-girlfriend's mom.
That is correct. Yes.
Did you introduce him to your mom?
Only once, but luckily we were distant. New York to LA. He wasn't able to really make a move.
Gotcha.
Wait, which date number did you find out about this?
It was probably like 8.
Okay. And then how long did it take you to go on your first 8 dates?
How long? It kind of moved a little bit quickly, so we just kind of got into it, and I was hooked. And he told me these stories. They were red flags, but
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty charming guy, right? If you're willing to overlook that part. Wait, so did you afterwards though? You were like, you hear about this and you're like, oh, just he's fun.
I was kind of new to LA, and he had some talents.
Talents
I mean,
as like a boyfriend?
Not really as a boyfriend,
Like he knew people to introduce you to?
He knew things.
Is he the son of a famous person?
He was on Saved by the Bell, the new class, actually.
Wait, was he really?
One of the nerds. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's pretty excellent.
Did he know about this movie? And
he actually was at our premiere.
Okay.
So we're all good. He's polyamorous.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Well, I don't know if I told you guys this, but I definitely got COVID at your premiere.
Did you? You weren't the only
So did
one.
my mom. So did I.
Really?
Yeah. I was supposed to go to
funny.
Fiji,
Matt and your
and my
mom
trip
were
got canceled.
quarantining together.
Yeah. I went to the Taco Bell Cantina on Hollywood Boulevard that night, and then I was like, oh no, I definitely have COVID in the morning. And I was like, what if the last meal I can taste is Taco Bell Cantina? Because I did lose my sense of taste and smell.
You did.
Wait, I'm curious, Meryl, did you ever interview this mom character?
No, never met her. I've never even seen a picture of her. So it's very
Come
loose.
on, isn't that like the first thing you're like, look her up on Facebook?
Yeah, you
I
didn't
wanna
Google
see what
her?
this person looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know what her last name is,
Sure. Fair enough.
So, and Tyrrell, you're just like, according to your subtitle, you're also a writer on this piece. So
Yeah.
did you also have a similar experience, or it's all kind of based
Well,
on
I
Meryl's
did.
experience?
I did do some field research while we were writing the screenplay. So I dated a musician 10 years younger than me and lived with him.
Oh,
And he
right.
actually gave us a lot of material as well.
Yeah.
So you know
This
what's
looked
Character of
crazy?
Alex.
My dad was just visiting me from overseas this past week, and he asked me if I knew what a May-December relationship was, and English is not his first language, and I was like, oh yeah, May-December. And he's like, there was a movie. I was like, yeah, I think it's like a short relationship, like when you start a relationship in May and it
Okay.
ends like in December.
I
Like a
consider that
summer
a long
fling.
relationship.
Yeah, and then I was like, I guess that is kind of long. 5th month to the 12th month, and then he's like, no, it's not that. He said that in France they call it to Macron someone because Macron dated someone that was much older than him. But so you had a May-December relationship.
I did while we were writing the screenplay.
And did the guy you were dating know that it was just for research?
Well, I wouldn't say it's just for research, but it was very helpful. Where it didn't work out. Shocking, I know.
It was a 10-year difference, you said?
Approximately. But, I think if he saw the film, I think he'd see a little shade of him and Alex and be happy, actually. Much like Meryl's muse.
Yeah. I wonder if people do see themselves in characters or not. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like, oftentimes people are like, oh, is that me? Did you base this off me or did you base that? And I think most of the time it's either, the answer is no, or like the aspect that you did pick from them isn't the thing they're picking up on, I feel.
Right.
Right?
I
don't know.
that's a good aspiration, is to hope that one day someone bases a character on you in a movie.
Sure. Yeah.
That'd be pretty awesome.
Kind of like a fear of mine, I feel like.
So going back to like
it.
the writing of it all, was it, Meryl, I'm assuming you wrote before this movie. Were you just like, hey, I want to write something, like, let me think back and like what interesting stories I know? Or was it the other way around where like you learned about this relationship and thought it was so fascinating and thought you have to write a script about it?
So I had moved to LA to kind of pursue television writing, and I wasn't really breaking in. Like I was writing spec scripts and pilots and stuff like that. And then Tyrrell and I were working together. We were working on SAT prep videos.
Ooh, I love those.
Yeah.
How did you guys meet in LA?
Yeah, in LA. Like we were both working at the same company. We were both like trying to get out, trying to make our own stuff. So we both wanted to do our own stuff. And at the time, my boyfriend was leaving me to go be polyamorous. And I was kind of, fixated on him and trying to understand how he, ended up being polyamorous, which could have maybe been obvious from the eighth date when we discussed, his former life. And so I just Tyrrell was looking for something that she wanted to direct. And the story seemed like something that could be contained and we could probably do for a reasonable budget.
That's cool. And what was your background in directing, Tyrrell, before this movie?
Yeah, I'd gone to USC for undergrad. And
Sorry.
Where did you go? Or did you go to UCLA?
I did, but that's not why I'm sorry.
I went there for my master's, so I'm a
Sure,
switch
there you
hitter.
go. Yeah.
Oh, cool. To UCLA?
Yeah, for
Oh,
screenwriting.
did you study, were you in the School of Cinema Arts or whatever you call it?
Yeah,
at
School of
USC?
Television. I went to School of Cinematic Arts at USC. I had a thesis film that did well. And I'd worked in the biz for about 10 years, but I'd really been pushed into producing. And that wasn't really what I wanted to do or what I felt like I was meant to do. And I was really looking for something to kind of go all in on. I was like, I feel like I have the skills now to do this. And if I keep on the path I'm going on, I'm going to be this like bitter producer that's like a shadow artist. And I met Meryl at the water cooler. And she's actually like, I've been like forced in this polyamorous relationship. I have to meet someone to get into a monogamous relationship to get out of this polyamorous relationship. And I was like, I love that. That's like, we have to be friends. And we just liked all the same stuff. Like we loved girls, the show. And that was like a really exciting time to be like a female filmmaker because suddenly like women were becoming the main character, which is crazy that I think that was really only like 10 years ago. But, shows like that showed us with Fleabag, like our stories are interesting and worthy. And we just really had a meeting of the minds in that way. And we both had very dubious ex-boyfriends. And so the story like really spoke to us because it's showing passion from a female perspective. And it's like a nurturing mom making this horrible decision. How could that happen? That's why we're really interested in this story. And also like showing that on screen, how passion can really ignite you and kind of wreck your life, but also bring great things to you. We just felt like had it been shown enough on the stuff we'd seen. So I think that's kind of the passion that like took us through the whole process, which was a pretty long process.
Yeah.
I want to, that's awesome. I want to ask one last question about like the origin story, the Tyrrell 1.0. So you said you made a thesis film that did well, but then you were kind of pushed into producing. What does that mean that a thesis film does well?
So at USC for undergrad, you pitch to direct a 480. And 4 students get it a semester. And I think that's still...
Out of like, is it 50 or 100? Like everyone's
like 100.
pitched. Yeah. It's like the prestigious film to get, basically, right?
And they pay for it, or
wow.
I think you still make the crew pay for something.
Yeah, technically we pay for it. The crew pays for it.
Like, you want to be the dolly group? You get to rent the dolly.
Well, you're paying to take the class, right? And the class in its credits, so it's essentially 2 different classes. So you're paying to take the class and then crew on Tyrrell's movie, for instance.
Lucky you.
Lucky.
Yeah, so it's about, I mean, I did the math back then. It was like, I just paid $8,000 to work on your short film, basically.
Free, yeah.
It's just kind of the beginning of all the money you have to spend to make
Yeah,
anything.
sure.
That's
Yeah.
So what happened? So you made this short,
experience.
and did it play at film festivals, or do you just kind of, does USC show it to a bunch of companies or agencies, or?
Yeah, it played at a bunch of festivals. It played at like over 50 festivals. It won awards. It won like the jury prize of the Rhode Island International Film Festival, which is like an Oscar qualifying film festivals.
Smallest state's biggest festival.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. Yeah. And I think it's called like Flickers now. But it didn't like, launch my directing career. I wasn't being offered like features off of this. And, that's hard I had some things almost happen, but it's difficult. And it was, I think,
Did
even
you
more
get an
difficult
agent?
for.
or
I
anything
did
like
not get an
representation?
agent out of it. No.
The film schools tend to still sell everyone the dream of the hit student film that's going to get you, that 3-picture deal that we've all been dreaming of, right? Do you know what I mean? It's unfair to think that you're going to be Robert Zemeckis or John Cho, basically.
Or Brenna,
Or
right?
Brenna Malloy. That's true.
Yeah.
Won a student Academy Award.
I know Brenna.
And then launched
a
like
friend of
a
the show
insane
and this group.
TV directing career.
Yeah. But also, I mean, that's a great example, though. Her student film won some legit awards for sure. And then also, she'll be the first to say, and I think if you listen back to the episode that she was on most recently, she did, like, I don't know, 4 other, like, very prestigious, like, programs in between then. So, yeah, like, a great film can, like, open some doors, but there's still a lot in between, a meteoric television career and a great student film, right? Like making your own feature, for instance.
Sure. And I mean that my short was it's a parallel universe where everybody's gay, and it's about the closeted straight kid and who will go to homecoming with, and it was a teen comedy.
It's funny. It's good. Yeah.
And it was pitched to Logo as a series, and that could have happened, and who knows, it's like how the business works. It's crazy.
That is a very good pitch. Yeah.
Yeah, that is cool. Okay,
It's
so
fun.
fast forward to, so you kind of were directing a little bit, producing a lot. You had a full-time job kind of working, producing, but stuff that you weren't passionate about. You met Meryl, you had the script, and then what? Then I can't wait to hear about how you met Mr. Matt Enlow.
Well, the script writing process was quite long, but we can jump over that part. Meryl and I developed it for a long time, really just wanted to make sure it was the best it could be before we tried to raise funds or really went for it. And part of that process was doing workshops. And one of them that we did was through USC. It was an alumni workshop. They only did it once. And you had to pitch to get into it. And it was like writer-directors that are USC alumni, chosen by the director, Luke Greenfield, who's the comedy director who did Girl Next Door, who's a pretty fortunate son from USC. And he worked with us, I think, for like a little bit over a month to help us get our
I was trying to recall.
Ready.
Yeah, like effectively, we would just kind of meet in a workshop together. None of which is especially important because of these sort of workshops, whether it's a writers group or something like through a school or something else. They're all just kind of excuses for like-minded filmmakers to kind of get together and try and figure it out together, right? One of the big themes of the show, and the reason that I think this is interesting to anyone, is that like none of us knew each other, right? And that was, like we said, in 2017. It's 2024 now. And, you guys were in my movie. My wife was in your movie. Like the support system that those programs or experiences can create, I think, are invaluable and are the reason that we advocate moving to a large market, right? Like into a LA or a New York or a London or wherever, because there's no way we would have met otherwise, and I think like there's something special about unlikely friendships or just like off the beaten path friendships that kind of create a meaningful creative community, but like that can be like, you don't have to have gone to USC. It's just that some of us happen to have, right? So like, there you go.
For us also, like, it gave us a lot of confidence because we'd been working on the script at that point for like a year and a half, and we'd submitted to different contests. We hadn't gotten, much, and finding, okay, Luke likes this, like that helped us really feel like we had something.
When you were, submitting to different contests and kind of getting the script ready, developing it, wanting to get it made, was there a number, Meryl, you mentioned that you liked that the concept was contained. Was there a number, like a budget number that you were aiming for, that you're like, this is how much we want to make it for? Or was it kind of that tiered system where it's like, well, if we get this name, we'll try to make it for this much, or let's see if we can get a studio attached first. And can you tell us a little bit about the financing of it all and like kind of the thought process behind it?
Sure.
Or you can say no if you want.
I mean, we had actually said $1 million. That was what we were hoping for. And we went to Sundance and we started talking to people, trying to get producers, trying to get people to help us
Like
raise
just
money.
went to the festival.
Yeah, just like as a networking thing. And we're like, oh, we have the script, we made a lookbook, and we'd like to make this for $1 million. And
Can I
people
ask a really stupid question?
Yeah.
But something I'm always curious about, because we hear about this, people go to Sundance to, network and to meet investors and producers and financiers. How do you have meetings lined up before you get there? Do you say, hey, are you going to be at Sundance? I'll be at Sundance. Let's grab a coffee or let's do this. How do you arrange those opportunities to talk to the right people?
We did some of that, but also you're just at parties all the time. So you meet people at the parties. You're walking around, you're getting free drinks, getting free food. And you're like, oh, here's my thing. And then you end up making meetings after that. A lot of it is bullshit, though. When you're there, you're like, oh my God, everybody loves this. We're going to make this next month. And then once you leave, a lot of that goes away.
And do you have a business plan and all that stuff ready to go?
Yeah, we did sort of.
We had a budget. That we actually went 3 times. So we had a budget the second and third time that we went, and set up some meetings prior with producers. But I think Meryl, Tyrrell, Meryl rhymes. The script's kind of raunchy. We're drinking wine, being raunchy ourselves a little bit. It was very on brand.
Can you give us an example
of what being raunchy looks like for us? It's staying at parties and stealing the Jägermeister and bringing it home at the end of the night.
That's true.
Okay, that's good. That adds up.
Pre-COVID.
Well, it all sounds wonderful and really fun, but I am curious about difference between year 1 versus 2 and 3. I assume you kind of find your process. There were things that you turn to and these places, and we'll get on these lists or whatever. But what did you do differently between Sundance 1 and Sundance 2? I'm curious.
There was a big learning curve between the 3.
Yeah.
Honestly, the first one, we were just whoa, this is so cool. And people are so open. It feels like there's so much access. As long as you can sneak into the party. And we're really good at sneaking into the parties. So
how did you do that? For real? How did
our
Yeah.
friends would get us invited a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Or how did we sneak in? We RSVP'd things. We made up. Meryl came up with the name for an actual production company for the film, but it was a joke at the time. X-Files Productions, EX, because we like to write about our ex-boyfriends.
Yeah, that's funny.
And then, you just can just kind of walk in sometimes too.
Mm-hmm.
You just sort of have to be bold.
Mm-hmm.
And know people. Knowing people really helps. But we've had friends sneak us in. You just have to be very what's the word I'm looking for?
Tenacious?
I don't know. Tenacious.
Yeah.
That's a good word.
You have to be a
those
contortionist. Matt and I sat on his shoulders and had a giant trench coat on.
Yeah.
That's going to go
We
great.
tripped before we got into
I couldn't
the
see.
front door.
I couldn't see anything.
Don't put Matt on the bottom. Next time. One thing that's interesting that you said is that, obviously your names rhyme and you have this raunchy movie and you're kind of embodying the film as people, as filmmakers. I think about that stuff all the time, nowadays when everything is like a pitch on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just what's the idea that you're pitching, but it's also why are you
brand.
the perfect person? Yeah, what's your brand and why are you telling these stories? And I think it takes a while to realize how important that is,
Mm-hmm.
to embody I guess your brand, like Matt said, is the best way to say it. But that's cool. And I think listeners that are trying to figure out why they went to Sundance and didn't get any cool meetings, maybe you don't have that. Maybe you're just another Matt.
We're lucky that we didn't we didn't write a movie about murders, so we didn't have to kill anyone or
Yeah.
And Sundance was great too because it was kind of a testing ground for the pitch and what people were interested in. And so we didn't have any funding. We didn't have a budget. First time, the second time, the meetings were set up in advance. We had $1 million budget, and then the third time we had a $500,000 budget, and we had seed money. And every time it did feel like we were getting closer and closer to really getting traction. And refining what we were sort of offering to people and making the film.
I wonder if you are trying to make a $500,000 movie, if you could just go to the bank and get a mortgage or just say hey, I'll pay this
Can
back
I
30
get a
years.
loan for $500,000?
Yeah, $2,000 a month.
I don't know if that would be too smart.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I
probably
don't
wreck
know
your credit.
bankers super well, but yeah. Don't do that, everyone. If you're listening at home.
Yeah,
Okay,
don't do
so
that.
what happened? So you guys did the workshop. You had some support. There's some buzz, some
Momentum.
seed
Yeah.
money, momentum. What put you over the top to get the film made?
Well, we were really inspired by Matt and Chrissy when they raised their money for See You Next Christmas. And they were super helpful in getting us to WeFunder. And we were just really lucky that neither of us had ever been married or had kids. So people were like, oh, we've never given them a present. So we had people we know giving us some money, and Tyrrell took out some money, if you want to talk about that.
Some student loans. Wouldn't recommend it.
Student loans for the film budget?
Yeah, I was in grad school at the time. And so I just took out all the excess loans that I could, federal loans, to get some seed money going for the movie.
So the seed money that you're referring to, I think eventually became some of the money for the initial WeFunder round. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's so funny, it took me, I don't know how long, like years to realize what you were talking about, because you'd mentioned it before. When we did our See You Next Christmas fundraising, there was no minimum to go live, basically. So when we were on WeFunder, you didn't have to have raised any amount of money. You could just, go live whenever. And they would recommend, like, hey, you should have some money in because no one wants to be the first chunk of money in. And then at a certain point in between when we raised and when you guys raised, that changed, right? And so,
No.
or no.
We didn't. No, it was just that we got like higher quicker because we put in 20. We started with So
Gotcha.
like it looked
Started
like
with
we were
that seed
doing
money.
really well, but
I
it was
see.
all
It's a good way to juice it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because now you have to hit 50,000 before you can go live.
Really?
Yeah.
No, we
interesting.
didn't have
Okay.
that. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we
so-
were past 50
before you went live.
Really
we did
quickly.
a friends and family raise, and that was like shocking. And the
Yeah.
thing that really kind of put us over the edge. So I was at Austin Film Festival with Chrissy and speaking of community, and they were like, "Oh, there's this new thing called WeFunder, and we're raising money for the film." And I'd like never heard of this, and it sounded so exciting and just like exactly what we were looking for and what we needed. And we'd also just placed for the second time in the Nickel screenplay competition. We were quarterfinalists. Second year in a row out of like 15,000 scripts, and that
The same screenplay
us-
both years?
Yeah.
and
Well, you did?
Well,
you
on
can
process
resubmit
with
it.
the writing.
And that made us feel like, okay, we have something that's like, you call it a sex comedy. It's like placing in probably the best screenplay competition there is. So like, we feel like it's ready. And it's been like fine tuned. And then hearing about WeFunder, it's like, you really got to go after these new things when they happen. Like everyone was so over Kickstarter at that point. Like you'd be lucky to raise $20,000. That's never going to get you to like a feature or the level that we wanted to make. So it just felt like perfect timing. And then Chrissy and Matt did it, and they like kicked ass, and we were extras on their shoot and got to see it happen. And it was
You were
really
like, oh, it really
inspiring,
happened.
and-
This is
Yeah.
this is
yeah, it was amazing. And so you're like, we better get on this. This opportunity is here. So we felt very ready, but we also really just went after it and were very strategic about it. And then it was pretty crazy. Like once we made that leap to fundraise, which is such a scary leap for any filmmaker, where it's like, hey, give me money, people I know. It's like, it makes you feel nauseous. But once we did that, and we did feel really good, like about what we were offering, people just started giving us money. Like it just sort of snowballed. It was a pretty amazing experience. Like, whereas the writing was very laborious and we worked really hard, and it just kind of felt like maybe we were punching windmills sometimes. The fundraising happened like within like 6 months or something, like something very quick, which was great.
And just as a point of clarification for people who haven't listened to all 446 episodes of the show, the difference between WeFunder and Kickstarter is that WeFunder is an investment platform, right? So you have to file through the SEC and like put together a plan for like, hey, this is how in success people get their money back, right? And then you also have to sign a bunch of paperwork that says, hey, I know I might not get my money back. I probably won't. It's okay. I'm not going to sue you. This is the plan. I know here are a lot of big risks, but it is,
You're selling ownership of the film.
Selling ownership of the film. Yeah, exactly. And so I think you guys are downplaying like friends and family for sure, and a significant amount of money was raised that way. But then also a very significant number of strangers, investors came in once you had that momentum going, right? Like some real money.
Yeah, we did have one angel investor that really clinched it for us. Who
Yeah.
we
Bezos?
found? What's that?
Jeff
Jesus? What?
Bezos.
Yeah, exactly. No,
No.
we had just randomly like posted about it on LinkedIn, or we were posting on LinkedIn about what we were doing, and someone from her team saw it and said she might be interested. We met with like 7 people, and they decided to make a major investment. So that was amazing.
She's like, I got a 1600 on my SAT because of you two.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
work you did 7 years ago, and now I'm paying it
Well,
back.
our angel investor made her money in a different industry and just wants to invest in things that are sexy and fun. And it was just such a perfect match for what we were doing. And like most of the women that work for her are the age of the women in our scripts. Like it felt like we had like arrived at this moment prepared, but like it was like kismet or something. It was pretty wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think there's pros and cons to crowdsourcing that I'm sure you guys can talk about more, but maybe the best thing besides actually just getting to make your movie is like you're forced to put yourself out there in a way that like you wouldn't have attracted this angel investor if you hadn't done, the 4 or 5 months of crowdfunding prior to that, right? Like you workshop your pitch, you put together your materials, everything looks great, and then also you have buy-in from all of these other people, whether that's family members or investors, you know what I mean? Like
Also,
that leads you to that point,
Yeah.
Yeah. By the time you get to meet the angel investor, and even by the time you get to make the movie, you've invested so much brain power into what your movie is going to be and how to sell it and why people are going to love it and why it's worth investing in, that when you get to make it, you're like, oh, this kind of gets way easier because I've already like thought, I mean, at least
that's
in
how you two
commercials,
thought.
we
You're like,
talk
oh,
about
this is nice and easy now, right?
Not it's
So
not
easy.
nice
So
and easy, but there's a difference between having 2 weeks of prep on a feature and having
Sure.
5 years of prep on a feature. There's a reason why Get Out is like Jordan Peele's best movie,
Right.
Sure.
And I would say because we didn't have money for so long, the only thing we had in our control was the script. So we just kept making the script better because no one was going to give us anything.
I'm incredibly curious about the casting. I'm sure this is like a main question that you get on the festival circuit or whoever you're talking to about the film. But I'm curious like how you decided the ages of the mom and the son and the daughter, and also how you went about casting those roles, because I think when you have these May December relationships, you're always
Look
like
at you.
it's just a term. You guys are familiar with the term, right? Can we make sure to cut out the previous conversation about me not knowing the term? I think about the young person when you try to cast them, they have to have something like very sexy and attractive, and for in this case, very handsome, right, and strong. I don't know. There's some qualities you're looking for, but they still also need to embody this like youthfulness and make the whole thing feel inappropriate in a way. I felt like your actor had this little mustache that maybe does a lot of heavy lifting for us in that sense. But I'm curious how you approach that. Like, what do you tell your casting director for age range?
The age range was very specific because in the movie, the character learns she's going through menopause because she thinks she's pregnant.
The mom.
From the affair, and goes to the gynecologist played by Matt's wife, Chrissy, in a great scene. And she's not pregnant. She's missing her period because she started the change. And that's like a shock to her. So it was very important that she be like 50 years old. And we spent a lot of time in the development talking about her age, and like in The Graduate, Anne Bancroft was like 38 in real life, and
Really?
Dustin Hoffman was like 30. There was
Don't
an 8-year
smoke,
age
everyone.
difference. But she, I mean, they really don't. She doesn't look that old, honestly. She's playing old really well. And also, aging was different back then, right? But we really wanted an age gap that was like, controversial. So someone who's 50 hooking up with someone who's, 22, 21, 22 in college is like, it's not something you see every day. So that was really important for the stakes of the story and like her being sort of ostracized and risking, being accepted by her community. And then as far as like the mom, casting the right mom, I really wanted to like cast someone who was like a nice kind of it girl on some level. And that's where I sort of started with like all these lists. And some were like pie in the sky and some were not. And we went out to some people before we got our actress. And Dina had like sort of been on my radar. Like Meryl and I both love 90210, and she played like the hot older grad student that like has an affair with Brandon on 90210. And she's often like played the like hot older lady.
She's also the hot one in Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, she's the tomboy.
Oh, that's true. Oh, I guess that's true. But she's the
tomboy.
Sorry, the naked one in Starship Troopers. That's what
true.
I'm really
she's
saying.
The one with the boobs. Yeah. But she's also played like the mom in these like sort of Mar Vista or like Hallmark films. So in every time we went out to an actress, I made like a pitch to them. And watching her stuff, she's so funny. She's been on Ally McBeal. She's been on Friends. So I wrote her a pitch that was like, you played this hot older lady, you played this Hallmark like mom, but you've never played both at the same time. And she really liked that pitch. And that's what I think, one of the reasons like Dina was down to do the film. And also she knew one of the actors that was initially supposed to be cast as Alex but had to drop out, which helps too.
And Alex is the love interest, the guy.
Yeah.
Young man. I know Matt will not be surprised that I'm asking this. When you went out to an actor, did you write a letter that is explained why they were uniquely right for the part for every actor?
Absolutely.
Well, except for our Alex, because we had a weird situation with that.
That's true. That's true.
Because we had someone attached who had to drop out, and we were, a month out. And we had been calling around. We were going to do an open call for an Alex. And then we saw Aaron walking down the street. We were on Franklin Avenue, and Tyrrell was like, "That's Aaron." We called him, and so we actually chased him down the street and told him that we loved him, and we sent him the script the next day.
Wait, sorry. He was an actor that you knew of before?
We knew of him. He was in what is he? Only Murders in the Building.
Yeah. He's tie-dye guy.
So, yeah.
Right?
So he was on our radar, but we'd called his agent and got nothing. And so then when we happened to see him, we were able to pitch in person.
So you're casting, I mean, the movie is pretty sexy. Does Dina have any input on who's going to play Alex? Like, are you doing chemistry reads?
It's almost impossible to do chemistry reads at this level. Like we are funded. We'd send out an offer to an actor and be like, we're fully funded. Obviously, we're not like offering the, sexiest rates in the world. So they got to love it. Chemistry reads really aren't an option. Unfortunately, we were able to do a chemistry read with the daughter character, which also sort of gave us a chemistry read with our main actors as well. Like the two Alex and Nancy characters, but it's kind of terrifying because you just don't get that option if you want to use somewhat well-known actors.
Talk to us about that a little bit more. Is that a scheduling issue? Is that a budgeting issue? Why is it not an option?
I think actors don't like to audition, and I think it's like sort of if you're punching above your weight for an actor, you don't get to ask them to audition. Basically, and that's a real challenge for independent filmmakers. I mean, we had Dina's approval with Aaron, who was going to be cast, that she was excited about that option. But it's tough. That's a really tough. That's like almost as hard as the like, how do you get funding if you don't have funding yet? It's like kind of the job cast.
The whole movie hinges on this chemistry.
Yeah, but
I guess
hold on, just to clarify though, Tyrrell's saying you were funded. And it was still hard to cast the way you wanted to. Yeah.
Well, we were not making, wonderful offers. So people had to really be into it. We sent a lot of letters and got no's. We talked with two other actresses before Dina who were maybe interested. But we definitely ended up with the perfect one. So,
I mean, even the fact that Aaron's agent didn't get back to you and you had to stalk him or
Meet
whatever
him.
you guys were
Yeah.
saying, Google Map
We didn't
searching.
stalk him. We ran into him.
Yes, we accidentally hit him with our car. Meryl just happened to have a hospital bed nearby in her
Perfect.
basement. So then did you get to rehearse? Are you nervous, Tyrrell, about like having these two on set and directing these scenes where these people, do you do closed sets? Do you talk about it? Do you have an intimacy coordinator? How do you orchestrate, these scenes?
Again, very challenging with indie filmmaking, right? And I think even non-indie filmmaking getting a rehearsal time. I really wanted rehearsal time, and Dina really wanted it too. So we did run-throughs at her house with Julia, who's playing the daughter, and Aaron, who's playing Alex. And that was super helpful. So we did that 2 weekends, the whole script. So then it was like, oh, are they getting tripped up on stuff? Is there like little tweaks? Where are the issues? That was super helpful. I mean, I'd storyboarded the whole script with the
And are you
DP.
blocking stuff with them during these read-throughs? Or are you just reading the dialogue and they're like, okay, and then we like kiss, and then
We're reading the dialogue, and I had blocked out the whole film with my childhood dollhouse and
Awesome.
the DP, which was pretty fun because it mostly takes place in a house. So that was really simple. And then we blocked the sex scenes using Barbies, which was really fun for me because I used to like make my Barbies have sex when I was like 8. So I was like, this is I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. It's like my childhood dream.
Is that, I noticed in the trailer, no one ever bends their knees or elbows. And I was like, that's an interesting choice. But now it makes sense.
But I think one thing that carried us through, and I'll get to the intimacy coordinator in just like a second, but like the people that did the film loved the film and got the film. Like no one was doing it to be rich. All the actors were like perfect for their part. Everything just kind of fell into place. It was really great. And I think that that's a testament to the script and also just working on it for so long. So like we knew what it was, the people working on it knew what it was, and there wasn't confusion about that. Then Dina, brought so much to it, so did the other actors, but like that kind of magical thing happened that you want to happen, which was really great. And we did use an intimacy coordinator. We have quite a few sex scenes. Dina actually convinced us to have less sex scenes. We had like too many cunnilingus scenes. And, we were like, no, we want these
Wait,
scenes.
can you
here.
tell
We're
us
like,
just
well,
the
they're
numbers?
Very
What's too many?
Yeah.
Where
Well, I'll
did
tell
you
you
end up?
this. I watched Outlander, and I realized we had way more sex scenes per minute than Outlander. I was like, maybe she has a point. There's like 5 sex scenes in the film or something. So there's quite a few.
I don't know that we've ever talked about shooting intimacy on this show, right? I don't think so. So this is virgin territory for us.
Well, let me pop that cherry. Couldn't resist. I'd actually worked as a researcher on this Tribeca documentary called Body Parts when I was at UCLA, and it's about the history of manufacturing sex on screen. And one of my jobs was to watch sex scenes out of context from films and log tropes. So like after people hook up, there's a sex position, and that's where they like talk about something. They like download the information they want to give you.
It's the opposite of exposition.
And watching all the sex scenes like really showed me what I thought a good sex scene was. Like Basic Instinct has like fantastic sex scenes, and they should have a beginning, and middle, and end. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Tell us more. Yeah.
And they should like represent the film, like it shouldn't just be like I'm grossed out by like scenes where I'm just watching people hook up. Like I find it like just sort of like alienating if I'm not invested. So that gave me sort of a sense of it. And then we worked hard in the script too, that like these scenes weren't superfluous. They were pushing the story forward, and every scene either started awkward and ended sexy, or started sexy and ended awkward. Like we were never just like sitting in that like you're watching people hook up kind of space. And the film is supposed to be kind of cringy and like make you feel uncomfortable and laugh and also be kind of hot at the same time. So I felt sort of prepared in that sense, but then you just get the actors together and it just works. So, and we intentionally, like I made sure in the schedule we didn't shoot the sex scenes like the first week. I wanted to make sure that people were comfortable. The intimacy coordinator was really helpful in that they made us talk through like all of the clothing beforehand, which I think could have been a detail that like wasn't thought through, because once you're there, you can't change the clothes, right? So that was really helpful.
And also like the cover-up materials, like
totally the foam, the sock. We have a couple ass shots. That's like really our main nudity, and that is like shooting with children or pets, like or animals. It takes forever.
As a person who's never shot any version of intimacy, why does a butt shot take so long?
The stream gets in the way, like, because they're not totally nude, so it's like you need to get it just right. And like every time we get like one that was just right, where it wasn't like you couldn't see the tape or whatever.
You're taping like the front part out of the way. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, if there's like a boob, you're taping the boob or whatever. We actually don't have any. That scene got killed where there was some slight female nudity. There's only male nudity. But it ended up actually being very fun because we did have that rapport at that point, but I was careful to not do that like the first week because it is, vulnerable spot to be in. But because the scenes were funny, like we were laughing the whole time. It wasn't too serious.
That's awesome.
While we were shooting them.
I had one more. I know we're running low on time, but I had one other production question that I was really curious about, which is about the house. I think Matt and I have both scouted many a house, especially in LA, and it can do so much to inform like the feeling, the scope, the production value, the lighting, the tone and the energy. It can say so much about the characters. I'm curious how you found your house and how much of your shot list adapted to the house you found, or how much you've forced yourself to find a house that would work with your storyboard.
Well, I mean, the amazing thing is we got our dream house, like everything we wrote, which is insane.
The Barbie dream house.
Yeah, we got our Barbie dream house. We talked to a few people. We were looking around. We didn't have that, high budget, obviously. Tyrrell put up some signs around Pasadena and Glendale, flyers.
How many days did you need it for? Like 3 weeks?
11 days, right?
Okay.
And we found this amazing gay couple who unfortunately had to move to Florida because one of them worked for Disney. And they had created their beautiful house with everything that was like so cool that, I think Nancy would have liked to have in her house. And they wanted their house to live on. So they were willing to let us use it for a very good rate. And they cleared out for the 11 days. And it was just kind of perfect.
Did your flyer have an offer on it or like a budget?
Yeah, it had the number. The number was so bad that it had the number.
Can you tell us what the number is, since it was plastered all over Pasadena?
Yeah, I like to live on the east side, so I knew Pasadena is too expensive to shoot it. We did shoot there a couple of days, and it murdered us,
killed us. Yeah,
the permits. Oh my God, don't shoot there. But I knew neighborhoods that looked like the part of Pasadena that I wanted, and there was one in El Sereno, one in Eagle Rock, and one in Glendale. And then I would walk along and look at Zillow listings and see, do they have a guest house? Do they have a pool? Is it a Craftsman? And then I put the flyer in their mailbox. And
can I ask why I needed to be a Craftsman?
It was just part of the script.
Really?
Yep.
It was because she doesn't all Pasadena is very kind of old money. I mean, Pasadena is pretty big, so there's different areas. But when I really think of Pasadena, I think of their cotillion balls but they do have these beautiful craftsmen, and that's the kind of funky, cool part of Pasadena. And that's how we kind of saw Nancy, is that she's not one of these she's not getting Botox and stuff. She's not one of those moms. She's got the cool, funky, artsy craftsman. So we wanted to show her personality that way. But what I offered for 2 weeks was $10,000 on the flyer, and we negotiated that up, but it was in that ballpark.
That number's not crazy sounding to me,
especially if you have an empty house or something.
Yeah. If you're on the market, right, sure. Right. If you're hey, I gotta go stay in a hotel for 2 weeks, that's a different deal for sure. Yeah. So it sounds like you were tactical.
There,
they were living there still. Oh, okay.
They were about to
move.
Well
done, guys. Well done.
And that was the stress too. They were gonna be gone, and so we knew we couldn't come back and do anything. We were never getting back in that house.
Oh, right. Was it furnished, or did you refurnish it?
We did some refurnishing, but it was furnished. We got to use it. Added so much production value because they had all this cool stuff.
I'm curious. Did you also kind of go through more traditional routes as well? Were you looking at your, location listings and even your Airbnbs and stuff like that?
Peer Space,
Peer Space,
Location Scouts.
Gigsters. Yeah,
We
yeah.
use some of that stuff for the other places, but like a house like that normally is like $5,000 a day.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
What was really cool, I mean, it was such the perfect house. Like it had everything we needed, but they also had like a brochure and the blueprints of the house for selling it. And so the DP and I storyboarded to that booklet, which was great, along with the dollhouse. So we could really, and we're like, oh, how can we use this house? Let's put this location, let's put this dinner scene here because we haven't been there yet. So that was really, I think, a luxury that like a lot of indie filmmakers don't have is like we knew we had the house like over a month before we started shooting. So, and we were still storyboarding at that time. So that was really helpful. But then by the time we got to the house, we never even looked at the storyboards. Like we knew it so well that we didn't need to. It's just been nice.
And the storyboards are like photos of these dolls, or are they drawings? Or
They were photos of the dolls, which saves time drawing,
Yeah.
which I can draw, but like, that's very time consuming. So it was great to just move the dolls around and then take the photos. So it was great.
And how did you show camera moves?
We would take like one photo and then another and then write in, the lens or whatever. Because I was sitting there with Akash, the DP, and we'd like, mark it out. And then we'd move we had a little Barbie camera, like a video camera, and we'd like move it around.
And then do you share those boards with like Meryl and like the rest of the team, or is it kind of just a plan that you have? That, like, I think about, Matt and I direct a lot of commercials. So to me, the number one biggest difference between directing commercials and anything else, but like indie film especially, is that we have, as the directors, we have no power over whether we're moving on to the next shot or not. It's 100% in someone else's hands saying that, yeah, okay, we got what we need. But as an indie filmmaker, no one needs to know anything. You could just be doing your own thing, and that's the only way you're going to get 40 setups in one day. Do you talk about the shots, the shot list, the tone, the colors, the lighting, or
I don't give a
Meryl,
shit
are you
about any of
just
that
like,
stuff.
I trust you, go for it?
Yeah, it's not my thing.
Yeah, that was definitely like my domain as the director. And I don't know, Akash and I might have shared that document with like the production designers, but I mean, people had the script, and I will say like, it was so empowering to just be like, I know we have it, we can move
Moving on. Yeah.
And, I've had, someone else coming up to me like, we need to move on. I'm like, we don't have the shot yet. We can move this around, because I was also one of the producers, and I knew, I'm like, okay, we can move this around or whatever, but this is important. And when I got to the editing process, like I would like write in those decisions, and that was like pretty awesome. I hope like every filmmaker gets that experience of just like being in charge of like everything. It was pretty great. And also it's like, I don't know, as like a filmmaker who'd been like waiting a long time for their shot, like I felt really ready for that power. Like I wasn't like lording it over. It was to protect the movie. And it was great. It was such an empowering feeling. It's really wonderful. I don't know, do you feel like you and Christy had that experience, Matt, on your film?
I produced, right? So certain sense I had less power than normal, right? Like I did have conflict, especially Tyrrell, I think maybe it was like one of the nights you were there. Important stuff was at the end of the night, and it was like we had to shoot it that way because of the chronology of like when the sun was going down and when call time was and all that stuff. We knew it wasn't the best plan, but it was the only plan we had. And I remember like being in conflict about like, hey, we need to wrap. We don't have money to go into overtime, and her being mad about it. We ended up shooting the scene again later. It was like the one thing we reshot. And it was like, I want to say like night one or night two. It was like early in the shoot for sure. Whereas like I can remember in like shooting a short film after doing a lot of commercials, and like I always think of the time, like I think I got the shot, and then I like instinctively like look to a video village that isn't there to be like, hey, I'm good to move on. Like realizing like, oh, I'm the only person calling the shots, which is where I came from in doing web series and your own sketches and stuff. Then you sort of almost rely on it in a certain sense as a way of like validating, like, I think we got it. I'm happy with it, but it's nice to have a bunch of suits who are on their phones behind a monitor be like, yeah, that's good. Good call. You know?
You see these seasoned filmmakers that talk about how they never shoot any coverage, but there are people that have shot 10 studio films. And you're like, well, that's not fair. Like, you have the experience and the confidence to say, okay, this one or works, let's move on. Where we are just, if this doesn't work, it's our big shot to make a good movie. We don't have the luxury of just saying like, yeah, that works. Also, we don't have the experience of doing that. There's other directors, obviously, like a Ridley Scott or someone that has 8 cameras shooting every single thing. So he knows we can do 3 takes, and yeah, we probably can edit something that works from this, But it's interesting. But it sounds like what you had, Tyrrell, is like months of prep and years on the script and knowing the story so well inside and out that you can be like, yep, this is like the intention of the scene, the performance. This maybe, I don't know what the style of shooting is. Like maybe there's one shot of coverage or a close up or something that we can go to. And otherwise, like, this totally works. Let's move on.
I'm glad it all worked out the way that it did, because it was so empowering and it felt right. I don't know, like, had I done it like 10 years earlier or whatever, I don't think it would have been as wonderful. So I don't know. Sure. And I mean,
that's good.
Whatever.
So let's talk a little bit about distribution, because I'm curious, because I know it's been a long road. And I feel like you guys have learned a lot.
I think it's really hard. Independent distribution is so hard, and the market's really hard. We did not get into one of like the big 5 film festivals. We did submit somewhat of a work in progress to some of them, which I wouldn't do again. I would have waited. So that's something I would recommend. And, some people advising us, oh, it's fine. I think it's fine if you've got like really big name actors and a big studio behind you. I don't think it's fine if you're an independent filmmaker and you get like one shot. So that's something I would do differently. But, it worked out. Like we premiered at Dances with Films in Los Angeles, which is like arguably the biggest film festival now in LA. And that ended up being fantastic. Like, our actors came out, they're local. We had a good PR person, Henry Eshelman, working for that leg of our journey, and we got an LA Weekly, where curtain reads are in Deadline. Like, we got a lot of press, we got a lot of momentum. We sold out our premiere, and then we won the audience award. So that was wonderful. Perhaps better than getting lost at one of the big 5. Who knows? And then through that, we did get our sales rep and then our distributor. So, I think.
And did they find you at Dances with Films?
Yeah, they contacted us afterwards. We got a few people contacting us afterwards.
Yeah, because I think that, I think even this show is guilty of this as well. Like, the narrative of like, oh, on to TIFF and then blah, 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 and now we're on HBO. I think a really fun story to tell. But I think that the reality for most filmmakers is that it's like a different road, right? Can still find a really satisfactory home. But so I guess that's why because I know the film well enough to know, like, okay, like, Dances with Films wasn't your first choice, but it was the right choice for you guys in the big picture, in the big scheme of things, right?
Yeah. And we're like on an email chain with the other alumni of the festival, and they're all kind of a lot of them are in the same place we are now. Like, they're getting their distribution similar. I don't know financially what their deals are, but kind of.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, to your point, Tyrrell, like, being a big fish at that festival, like, I remember, I keep making jokes about it, but like, it was a big deal. It was a sold out situation. So were there other things that you feel like you nailed at your premiere specifically?
I think having a good PR person was really great. We were able to hire a PR person. We had won the New York Mayor's office has a grant, and we had won it. Meryl lives in New York, so we were eligible, but that helped us with post-production. It made us be able to afford, PR person and do the stuff at the festival. And, I think getting our cast to come out and, do the red carpet for the opening night ceremony, getting lots of interviews, and then doing that again for our premiere, like, just created buzz for us.
And the fact that it was in LA, we didn't have to pay for anyone to travel. So we were able to put more money into the whole thing versus if we had to get them somewhere else, we probably wouldn't have gotten the same turnout. Like, almost our whole cast was there and a lot of our crew.
And we had the support to sell out the screening too. Like, our friends came, like you guys came, and I mean, Chrissy's in the movie, but, it was like a hometown situation, which was nice.
I was just going to go totally change the topic because I just looked you up, Tyrrell, on IMDb, and I'm just tripling down on what I said earlier about you mentioning that this is your first feature She has 36 short films before this feature, just on IMDb, which I assume means you probably directed, or sorry, as a director you have 20 short films. As a producer you had 36. But I'm just assuming not everything you direct ends up on IMDb. So you're an incredibly experienced director going into your first feature. Like, I think
It's
just to
true,
give some
but
context to our listeners.
thank you. And I agree with you. And as a filmmaker, filmmaker to filmmaker, I'm like, you're so right. But I think people don't see it that way. And I think it's, you get pigeonholed a lot in the industry and they see you one way. So if you do commercials, like doing a feature, it's like you're starting over. And then also it's really hard for women to make that leap. It's very hard to get the financing. It's very well documented. So it's like you have to prove to people even more so that you're capable of doing this. But eventually you just have to make the leap, however you could do it, whichever way you can. And because of that female angel investor, I was basically able to do it.
Well, now that you guys have made the movie, it's out in the world. You premiered at the festival, got it financed. All your investors are super
So
rich.
thrilled. Yeah.
What's next?
I'm writing a script based on my experiences at Burning Man and
Cool.
writing a kind of female buddy comedy about three strange friends who reunite at a similar concert experience.
Okay, what about you, Meryl?
So I am working on a pilot about a nudist colony in upstate New York, and
Cool.
I'm actually doing I'm working on a funded web series right now, a Gen Z sex comedy that's supposed to be sort of like a Girls or Sex in the City, and I'm just working with the writers, writing. So I'm very happy.
Cool.
Awesome.
Like in the writer's room type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's like basically on Zoom at this point, but it's kind of like the dream that I've had for like 20 years. So finally doing that.
And where is that going to air?
It's going to be on YouTube.
Okay, cool. And it's funded, is it funded by YouTube or by some company that puts stuff
It's
on
funded by some rich men.
YouTube? Cool.
The way of media these days.
Yes, I've heard of these creatures.
Yeah. Well, before we hop into unpaid endorsements, where can people keep tabs on your careers and learn more about you guys?
Yeah, we have Katie's Mom Movie, Instagram. We also have katiesmom.com.
Yeah, and I'm on Instagram, Tyrrell323, and also my directing website is Tyrrell323.com.
Unpaid endorsements.
So I watched The Fly, which is still available on Criterion. David Cronenberg's The Fly. 2 great sex scenes in it. One gives him the inspiration for how to fix his machine. He understands human matter better thanks to sex with Gina Davis. And then afterwards, he becomes the Fly. Like he's merged with the Fly, and he's got the weird hairs on his back or whatever, and is like superhuman. And she's like, "This is insane. I don't want to have sex with you anymore. This is we've been going for too long." Both are very funny and weird. But Jeff Goldblum is like really funny in that movie. Like truly funny. He goes for it in a way that I don't think people talk about enough. And then Gina Davis is just like fully committed, like truly terrified the whole time because her boyfriend is turning into a, enzyme vomiting mutant man. Movie's really great and like smart and weird. Like I said, funny, a little scary, mostly gross, like way smarter than it needed to be. And fascinating that it was a hit movie, right? Like, it's a movie people are still watching. It got a sequel. That's bizarre. That's insane. So, treat yourself to The Fly, Pat Boone. Tyrrell, what you got?
Okay. I hope no one's said mine before. I hope it's new.
46 episodes. It's okay. We'll make it a repeat
Okay.
or two. Yeah.
I think it's a newish thing.
We literally had someone endorse TikTok. That's how long the podcast's been on as like this new thing.
This
And
is
we were
crazy
like,
new
what is this?
What is
And
that?
we're like, that's not going to make it.
So I'm in a writer's group right now. And, reading scripts can be a lot of work in a writer's group. And so in the past, I've used like a PDF reader, but it's like this horrible robot voice. It's like chalk on a chalkboard. But there's this newish app called Speechify.
Wait, I think chalk on a chalkboard is like not as bad. You mean like fingernails on a chalkboard?
Like, it's just like the robot voice, like listening to a script be read to you, it's awful. Like, only
But it's
really
not as
like
bad as
that,
fingernails on a chalkboard. It's just as bad as chalk on a chalkboard.
it makes you feel crazy in the same way to listen
So
to the robot voice.
Speechify, Tyrrell. Tell us more about that.
Speechify is this app that reads aloud to you, but you can choose a celebrity voice to read to you. So now I'm
Ooh.
Gwyneth Paltrow
Mhm.
reading me scripts in my car for my writers group, saving me a lot of time. And it uses AI, so it's like she's not read every phrase or whatever, and it's very human like, and she can read you any PDF you give her. It's pretty great.
Yeah, Speechify and 11 Labs are like definitely competitors for sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay,
Yeah.
Meryl.
I'm going to endorse a book, All Fours by Miranda July. Speaking of May, December, it's got some really weird May, December action going on. I have not been like a huge fan of all her movies, but there's something about the book, like her voice in the book, fucking crazy.
It's awesome. It is, I think, the first time on this podcast that we've had the same endorsement back to
Oh,
back.
really?
Back
Mhm.
then. That's true. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Someone
That's okay.
else?
We've had,
Fuck.
yeah, last week.
Wow.
Cosign. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess.
but
Okay.
that's awesome. All fours. So I have someone sent, I was explaining to a non-film person what it's like to pitch over Zoom. And he said to me, oh, do you do that thing where you record yourself doing the pitch and then just listen to the audio back and then just watch the video without the audio and then watch the whole thing together and study it? And I said, what? And he was not a guy that pitches. Like, he had no idea. He was just randomly said this. And
That's not a thing, right? Has anyone
I
heard
said,
of this?
what? He's like, oh, you don't know
I
that.
practice my pitches on iMovie or like
Sure,
Yeah,
Photomovie.
but you don't then mute yourself to watch what
Is
your
it-
face looks like while you're pitching, right?
No, I watched the thing with audio.
Anyhow, I was like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. And then he sent me the video where he learned about this on Facebook or something. And there's this guy, his name is Vin Giang. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but his first name is Vinh and his last name is Giang. And he is a British guy that helps people learn how to communicate better, how to talk better, how to speak better. He helps a lot of people in business, like C-suite people, executives, people that need to put presentations together, to do public speaking, to learn how to speak better, to learn how to include more melody in their voice, to use volume as a tool. And he has master classes and all these thousands of dollars you can spend on his Tony Robbins style videos talking about how to communicate better. But if you just look him up on Instagram and just scroll through his stories, he gives away these like little tips. And they're all really interesting. And the biggest one that resonated with me, he talks about pausing and how so many people have trouble with the silence. And so they'll fill it up with the ums and the uhs and the you knows. But he talks about how much more impact things have when you can just finish them strongly and let people have some time to digest what you're saying and process things. Anyhow,
Yeah.
I thought it made me think, oh, maybe I should buy some books on communication and on public speaking, because all we do is like pitch ideas.
Well, if you have notes on our communication skills or any questions for Meryl and Tyrrell, you can hit us up at justshootitpod@gmail.com or across all social media at justshootitpod, and me at Mr. Matt Enlow.
And I'm on Instagram at @OKaplan. This episode was edited by Kevin Aoyang with some producing by Tyler Small. You're listening to music from the Free Music Archive and the artist Jazar, and we will catch you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Meryl and Tyrrell. Goodbye.
Thank
Guys,
you.
thanks
So
for having
fun.
us.